Hey all, this is David Ducker coming back at you, and today I'm going to be doing a race ecology video about undines. Undines, of course, are the people of the waters, and I'm doing this for my Fifth Element campaign. And the concept behind this campaign is there are only 4 races. There's the undines, people of water, the Oread, people of stone, the Self, people of the sky, and the Ifrit, people of fire. No other races at all in this world. And all the animals in this world also have one of those 4 elemental templates as well. It's kind of like Avatar: The Last Airbender meets Pokemon, because you get the awesome elements working in there. It's kind of very alien world. Because I love alien worlds. This one's going to be a fantasy setting as opposed to sci-fi, which is the other great way to get aliens incorporated into your game. So I'm going to be doing a 4-part series on one on each of the races. And we're going to kick it off today with the undines, people of water. Let's start with appearance. What do undine look like? So they look very much like human beings at first glance, but they tend to have blue skin, very slightly scaly or very slightly rubbery as well. They have gills on the side of their neck. They have fins running off their head on certain places like crests, as well as down the backs of their arms and legs. They have webbed hands and feet. Their feet especially have slightly wide, slightly elongated toes with the webbing between them, aids them in swimming. And they tend to have eyes that look kind of like frozen ice inside of their eye sockets there, which can be a very deep blue, almost like a sapphire, or it can be very light white, like some impure ice, or it can be somewhat clear and watery, almost like very clean ice that's been frozen, or even black ice to a degree. So that's their appearance. Their personality is that they are extremely freedom-loving people. They're very independent. They're very chaotic. Very mercurial. Just as the sea can be a storm one moment and calm the next, so too the undine can be extremely passionate one moment and then just cool right off immediately. So that's your general personality. So moving on to let's move on to their ecology now. So where do they live? So the continent of the world of the Fifth Element is ringed in swamps, and that is where the undine live, on this outer ring of swamps. These great mangrove swamps, the shifting tides. So sometimes the mangroves just look like regular trees, but then the tides will recede, and you have this labyrinth of roots that have been suspending them up from the silty floor. Now this is all it's all fresh water as well. This continent is in a freshwater sea. Although we do still have all these saltwater creatures, we have all saltwater and freshwater creatures, but it is all fresh water. So the undine, they can drink of it if they can find some that's not, as long as it's not fetid, or stagnant. So that's where they live. Now their biological characteristics are that because they have these gills, they can actually breathe underwater. That's their main characteristic. They also have some chameleon ability, but mainly they can breathe underwater. So their cities are built among these mangroves, both below and above the water. They tend to wall off some of the roots, use the roots as a kind of structure, a skeleton for their buildings, as well as tunnel inside of the enormous, gigantic mangrove trees themselves. And the more common people tend to live lower in the trees, among the roots, whereas the higher class individuals, the high priests, and the chiefs of their tribe tend to live higher up. The high priests might, they only bathe in rainwater if they can. They don't want to get wet from the actual water of the ocean, freshwater ocean, just for sacred reasons. And the chiefs, tend to live a little below them. And then we move down into the common hunters and gatherers, because their society is a hunter-gatherer society. Because of the great richness of the swamps in terms of animal life, and because of their chameleon ability, they're really expert hunters. They can hunt below the water because they have, I believe it's called deep sense. It's almost like sonar around them, only underwater. So maybe echolocation would be a better term than sonar. Or they can also hunt above the water, even up in the tree boughs, hunting birds, bats. So they're tremendous hunters. They're very independent. I don't know if they're hunters because they're independent, or if hunting has made them independent from each other. But they tend to break off into small clans or tribal units. Still tend to cluster around these very large mangrove trees. The ones they dwell in are much larger than the average tree, an order of magnitude larger. So such to the size that they'll have small villages up in the boughs where the priests live and some of the chieftains. So now this is using Pathfinder rules. I'm getting these races out of the expanded race guide, and I'm using some of the alternate race features like that chameleon skin and the underwater breathing. So we're going to use the Pathfinder like favored class. So Ranger right away. That's above all their favorite class. Also Druid for their divine magic, Sorcerer for their arcane magic, and for the arcane magic we're using the 4 elemental schools, which I believe is in the advanced player's guide. We're not using the 8 standard schools from Wizards of the Coast. We're using the 4 elemental schools. Of course, the Undine are pretty much restricted by tradition, restricted to the water school. And then, of course, they also have some rogues who really specialize in primitive traps. And these are the individuals who would trap rather than hunt. They're a little different. They have some tension with the Rangers. So that is essentially their, we've got their appearance, we've got their locale, their architecture, but their society. So like I said, multiple tribes coming together. All the chieftains live in the tall tree. There's tension between the tribes, but they still live together. They band together for protection. They do have the chieftain are going to be the best hunters in their society. That's really the standard of how useful are you. Are you a great hunter or just mediocre? So the best hunters will become the chieftain of their tribe and go to that tribal council where all the chieftains rule collectively, over them. And it's a very loose rule. And the chieftains, they might get to live higher in the tree, but they still hunt for themselves. That's how they have to prove their worth over and over. Or they could be ousted by a challenge of battle by a younger member who thinks he's a better hunter. So somewhat primitive, but because of the verdancy of the swamp, they get so much nutrient out of it that they can have large populations of maybe even several hundred people in one of these city-states around a mangrove tree. And they do war against rival city-states as well, especially stealing women so that they can keep their gene pools fresh. Fatalities are very low in these conflicts. They mainly just steal food, tools, and women from each other. This is just part of their culture. It's not that they hate each other vehemently. It's just the way they do things. So They're also each group has a few warriors set aside to act as true rangers and protect the village, scout around the outside, and set traps that are visible to other undines so they don't fall into them. But these traps are to keep away the large predators of the swamp, the black dragons, the froghemoths, perhaps some krakens or shuggoths, Tyrannosaurus. So they want to keep all these things away from the village so they don't wreak havoc in there. So it's a very important group, the actual rangers, not the class, but the actual organization of rangers. So I think that's pretty much it for the undines. So they're more primal. They're very independent from each other. They're very loosely structured. Now I can get onto their relationships a little bit. So what the undine do for the whole world at large is they provide a lot of the food and wood and animal products. So they're tremendous fishermen and hunters. They preserve their food, and they also collect trees, which they process into just wood for construction, as well as things like spears and bows that require wood, and other tools like they'll send the wood over to the Oreads via the sylphs. We'll get more into that, especially in the sylph video, so that the Oreads can make carts and have exotic wood carvings and even make paper out of. So the undine also make paper for themselves. They pick medicinal herbs in the forest. So alchemy is also very, very much their domain as opposed to any of the other races. So if you want a healing potion, it's probably come from the undines. Or if you want a vial of acid or a poison to use against someone, that's coming from the undines as well. So I think that's about it for their relationship. I'll go back to their architecture again. Because it's built in the roots and the boughs of the mangrove trees, and because the tide fluctuates so much, it can be very, very dangerous for any other race to visit them, because a passageway might just suddenly flood with water. And the undines don't really care about that. It's not dangerous to them. They'll notice it, but they won't really, be concerned. Whereas, any other race will just drown, especially Ifrit, because they are allergic to water. Or Oreads, because they can't swim. They sink. They're the people of stone. Sylphs can probably swim very well, but it could still be dangerous for them, especially if they can't keep above the water line. They're trapped inside a building that fills with water. That could be very dangerous to them, so they could drown. So I will mention that about the architecture as well. And that's pretty much it. I might at some point post which alternate racial traits I chose, perhaps in the YouTube RPG Brigade Facebook page. That's a mouthful. But I'm going to leave it there. I'd love to hear what you have done with undines in your game, or any kind of water-dwelling or swamp-dwelling creatures, such as bullywugs, lizard folk, Lokatha, even aquatic elves could have a lot of overlap depending on your setting. So leave that in the comments below. Let me know what you think of these ideas, and give me some more ideas so I can really flesh this out. Because I love more base races, and I love these organizations and these strange cultures we can develop out of them. So I'm going to sign off now, and everybody have a good day in YouTube land.